So Rita, I'm so excited about this next part of your journey with Rita's reflections, and it's an honor to be here with you to hear some of the thoughts behind what brought you to where you are today.
Well, thanks for joining me. I mean, you're one of my dearest friends, and I can't think of anything better than just having a cup of tea
Yes.
with my dear friend and sharing some of the stories and the Reader's Reflections. What it's really all about is over the years, we all gain knowledge, wisdom through our experiences. And as the downsizing designer, I have learned so much. And my commitment is to really share that with the world, to inspire people, to encourage them to live on those skinny branches in life, so that, if you're a little bit afraid, just do it anyway, because that's when you're really going to learn more and not to be afraid, basically.
Right. And you know what? You're living proof of this. Like, you can just see how your life manifested by creating this with the downsizing and just living life by design,
Yeah,
which is awesome.
life by design. That's right. Yeah.
Okay, well, let's just jump right in.
Okay.
So, what would you say inspired you to choose the south of France for your 30-day adventure? And how did the idea of living as a digital nomad come about?
Okay, so the south of France has always been in my heart. As a young child and into my early teens, we lived in Europe. And every month, my mom would plan a trip to another country because it was right next door. And we might go for 3 or 4 days, something like that. But so travel became part of my blood, and culture became part of what I was so curious about. And the south of France is one area we never spent that much time in. So I thought, one day I'm going to go back. And so it was always in my heart, on my bucket list. And when the whole idea of the digital nomad came about, it was because my older son, who worked with me for about 3 years in business development, he handed me a book one day and said, "Mom, you don't have to work so hard." And I looked at the book, and it was Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Work Week. And I thought, no way. I mean, I worked, 40 hours, 50 hours, 60 hours, whatever it took to create a really viable business. And when he gave me that book, I read it over the weekend. And I thought, wow, it opened my eyes to the fact that you can possibly live nomadically and work from a distance. Now, that seemed impossible to me, so it was a real challenge, but I called it Work 3 and Play 4. So I thought, oh, that would be perfect if I could just work 3 days and play the rest. Right. Now at a later stage, a few years later, I'm basically working 2 and playing 5. But it morphed into, what do you want for your life? Right. And after having worked so hard for so many hours as a single mom, raising my boys and everything else, I thought, it's time for me. And the working 3, playing 4 mantra became part of my team. And they said, "Rita, just do it." And even though I was afraid, I booked the flight, I think, around November, and then I didn't leave until July. And during that time, I will tell you, I wanted to cancel it 15 times, thinking, I can't do this, I have to be here. Well, guess what? I didn't have to be there. I have a wonderful team. My only commitment was that every day I created a video, wherever I was in France at that time, and just share what's happening in my little world, my new little world. And of course, so many people, and I think you were one, who watched those videos. And I had hoped that those videos would inspire someone to try it also. Whether that was a little bit radical, I suppose, because I had no plans other than just get there and then have fun. But anyway, it worked out just beautifully. And I have no regrets about doing it. As a matter of fact, at one point when I said, what if I don't do this? It's kind of crazy, isn't it? And that was the question, what if I don't? Yeah. That's what said, I'm doing it, because I will regret this for the rest of my life if I don't.
Right. And sometimes not doing something is such a motivator to do it. And what a gift that your son gave you that and was aware of it.
Yeah.
And that you embraced it. And then look, you really acted on it. And I remember watching those videos, and very inspiring and encouraging for people to take that leap of faith and do what's their heart's desire is.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
good for you.
Of course, a funny backstory there is that my son, both of them, was, Mom, you did what? I didn't have to, I wasn't accountable to anybody other than myself.
Right. It's great when, and I think it's really great when your kids see you kind of living outside the box.
Yep, exactly.
So,
Mhm.
so I know you mentioned having very little planned, during that time when you arrived in France. How did the freedom of having no set itinerary impact your experience, both positively and possibly negatively too?
Right. Well, for sure, it was more positive than negative. Although the negative part, I did get myself into trouble a few times. But the positive was that, imagine waking up in this beautiful area, and my very first day was in Marseille, right on the water, and just imagine having nothing you have to do. I hadn't experienced that. I don't think ever, but certainly not in the years that I was raising my boys or, creating my business. And so it was absolute freedom. And I had not experienced that before. So that was really amazing and something I wish for everyone, that you can have some sort of freedom like that, where you basically don't have rules. You're creating constantly. What do I want to do next? Today's a beautiful day in Marseille. Where do I want to have coffee? Who do I want to meet? And it just kind of morphs, and you allow yourself to go with that flow.
No boundaries.
No boundaries. None.
Unlimited possibilities.
Exactly. And of course in Paris, not Paris, but in France, it was just so beautiful. Everything you looked at. Now, on the negative side, I got myself into trouble a couple of times. One quick story was I had committed to not getting a car. I was only going to use public transportation. My French is limited, but I could get around. But I will tell you that there are times I said something and whoops, I shouldn't have said that, or did I say it right? But I was booking a hotel while I'm on a bus going north, and I forgot to push send. So I arrived there, and it was a busy season. No one, had, and that was one thing, and that was workable because she said, "Oh, right down the street," and so she booked something else for me. But one time, I was in the Pyrenees, in the middle of nowhere, and I thought, I booked this, and it was a beautiful B&B, but literally it was so far out that the monks lived right up the street.
Oh my goodness.
I was that far out. Yeah. And it was one of those things because I didn't have plans. I didn't know, how far this was from anywhere, but it was fun. And I ended up staying there for 3 or 5 days simply because it was one of the most beautiful places on earth.
Wow.
And the innkeepers were both from Paris. One owned a beautiful antique store, and another one was a very famous chef. So I benefited by my mistake.
Absolutely. I was going to say, it doesn't seem like it was anything negative. It really turned around, and how exciting.
Yeah. And you brought up a good point because, even though things maybe didn't go exactly as I would like them, when you go with the flow, it gets kind of exciting because you create something new. So here I am carrying rather heavy luggage, and everywhere I went, people were so kind because I guess I looked a little bit old, and they said, "Can I help you with this?" And in the train stations, you go up 20 stairs and down another 20, up and down. And I remember thinking, okay, I did this to myself. I could have packed lighter. I didn't. And I'm suffering for this right now because nobody has asked me to help me.
Right.
So anyway.
But look, everything worked out, and you probably, with the unknown of the monks and all that whole experience, look how it just opened other possibilities and opportunities. So cool. So during your journey, you talked about the vibe of different cities you visited. How did these unique energies influence your experience and your connection to each place?
Oh, it's so funny, and I know you've traveled extensively in Italy. when you are in that place, it's almost like God put you there.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
And there was one particular relatively small city called Arles, and I walked into, I had booked a little bed and breakfast, and the minute I'm there, people are so friendly and welcome, and why are you traveling alone? And what can we do for you? And just one thing after another. And then, when you want, the perfect pastry, go there, or shopping, go there. It was, I had a true connection to that little city. I will definitely go back there at another time. I also had a true connection to that little B&B that I stayed in the mountains somewhere. I can't say why you have that connection, but you definitely feel it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I know, like you brought up about like going
Mm-hmm.
to Italy.
Mm-hmm.
There's a sense of home. There's a sense of peace that you belong there and you want to revisit it. So that is beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
That vibe that
It's a vibe.
is drawing you back.
Yeah.
Definitely. So traveling without a detailed plan can be both liberating and challenging, as you previously said. Can you share a moment when the lack of a plan led to an unexpected and memorable experience?
Right. Well, I'd gone to church in the morning, and right across from the square was the bus station. And I thought, I guess I'll get on the bus today and go somewhere new. I had no idea where I was going, other than I was kind of headed north. And of course, the Pyrenees are there, so I was kind of paralleling the Pyrenees. I got on the bus. I had no idea where I was going, but I just, here I am. So I got on the bus, stayed there for a little while, and also I could get off wherever I wanted to. So I got off at some little town, had breakfast or something, and then I said, I think I want to go further. So, there's the train. So I hopped on the train. And the train was going to, I forgot the name of the village, but I said, okay, well, I'll go there. Well, mind you, this is Sunday. And in these little villages, certain things just don't run or don't, So
Right.
I was going to go to this little village and then have a connection with a bus to where I thought I really wanted to go. Well, there's no bus on Sunday.
Oh my goodness.
There's no bus. But there'll be a bus tomorrow. That's okay. It's okay. Well, in the meanwhile, I've got my bag, and I remember walking down the street, rolling my suitcase, and literally all the shops are closed, but there was one little bar right on a corner with 4 old guys sitting in there playing cards. And they looked at me, and they must have thought I was from another planet, because I had my suitcase. And in my limited French, I said, I want to take Uber. And because I can't get,
Right.
It was like, what's Uber? What's Uber? And then I thought, they don't know what Uber is. I said, what about internet? We don't have internet.
No.
So here I am in the middle of nowhere on a Sunday. It was beautiful there. But then, just as I'm standing there having this awkward conversation with these men who thought I was truly crazy, a young man walked by, and in perfect English, he said, you look like you're lost. Can I help you? And I said, yes. And I told him, and he laughed. And he said, no, there's nothing running until tomorrow, but my mother has a B&B. Maybe we can book you there. So here's this gentleman. He walks me down the street to the B&B. His mom and I became instant friends. She laughed at my story. She said, oh, this is so fun, so exciting, but I have no room. So, but she said, but my son will take you to, I was going to Arles, my favorite little city. And I got in the car with him, and I swear, he said €8. So anyway, I was going to pay this man and give him a good tip and everything else. So he brings me to Arles, which was about 45 minutes away, drops me off at my little B&B that I had booked. And when I got there, I handed him €8, and he said, €80. Oh, anyway, but that was one of those funny things. You just laugh at yourself. And when you travel alone, you don't have anybody else saying, oh, that was so silly or anything like that. I just laughed at myself. Anyway, of course, I gave him is 80 euros and then some.
Right.
Yeah. But, those kind of funny things happen and you can just laugh. And I mean, there were times, literally standing in that little village saying, where am I going to sleep tonight? That was a little bit of unnerving.
Right.
But on the other hand, it worked out beautifully.
It does. That's so cool. And then just think, you met a new friend.
That's right. That's right.
And it was a little bit more expensive than you thought, but you got there safe, and here you are today to tell the story, right? So you discussed the concept of seeing more of less. How did focusing on a smaller region of France enhance your travel experience and deepen your connection to the culture?
So I strongly recommend seeing less when you travel. And that sounds like an oxymoron because you want to go see as much as you can. But what I know to be true, because I've traveled extensively, when you focus on an area, once you find whatever this place is that you fall in love with, get to know it more. Spend, a couple of days rather than just 1 day or 2 days, spend, 5 days. And I didn't have to come home in 30 days. So I kept thinking, okay, well, maybe I'll stay for 60, who knows? But I think what happens is that you get connected to an area and then you just want to know more.
Yes.
And in this particular little town of Arles that I fell in love with, I would go to the piazza every morning and, have my coffee and talk to people. And then I'd go to a little bar at night. It was a very nice bar. And just sit there and talk to people. And what was always so interesting is you're traveling alone. Why? And I would try to explain it to them. I'm never sure whether they understood me or not, but it was interesting to see their reaction to a woman traveling alone. And so I said, well, you don't you don't have anybody else saying, I want to go do this and you want to go do that. None of that.
Right.
You get to do whatever you want to do.
It sounds like the experience of staying in a certain place longer too, like it built a little bit more, you weren't rushed, first of all.
Right.
You were able to savor that, and get to know the people.
So here was an example, because I did choose to stay in Arles. I think I was there for 4 or 5 days. And I was sitting there one day and I thought, all these bicycles parked over there. And I thought, well, it's kind of a bicycle city anyway.
Right.
But what was so interesting, the Tour de France was coming through there. And had I not stayed, I would have missed that. And then I was able to talk to some of the cyclists and, how exciting that was and everything else. But yeah, those. And then one time, I'd been in this bakery like 5 times, so the woman and I were kind of getting to be friends here. And she invited me back into her bakery. And she said, do you want to learn how to make whatever this little pastry? I said, yeah. Anyway, so, I was literally just rolling and doing all of that. But, because you make a connection with a place, with people, when you see less, you actually experience more.
I totally agree with that. And just think, there could have been missed opportunities if you felt like rushed to get to the next place.
Right. Yeah.
It's a beautiful concept. I love that. Seeing more of less. So loneliness is something many solo travelers experience. What strategies did you use to overcome moments of loneliness during your trip? And how did these moments shape your overall journey?
Well, it's like anything else in life. We all have our ups and our downs, and, how do you deal with it? And I'm a people person, so I know that people will make me happy. And so given that there are so many beautiful squares there, I would oftentimes go just have coffee or wine, whatever time of the day it was, and inevitably I would meet people. Or I'd just be watching the children play or the people talk, or, I would be fantasizing about that couple over there who, they've just met. But, I was single for many, many years. And I realized, I've got to get out and be with people. And then the other thing that I did, that I'm very close to my family. And so I would call home. And I would text and email. And I actually shared with my sisters, I'm really lonely over here right now. It didn't last for long, but let's just say it lasted for a day or two. All right, so what are you going to do about it? Just connecting with your family and people who love you. And then I journal, and I pray. So, those are kind of a number of things like that I did. And I'm not much of a shopper anymore, but sometimes a little shopping therapy helped, to go buy something fun. And
But those connections, I think, are so important. Like you said, you're a people person, and then just being true to your feelings and observing them, and even sharing them with somebody, and then filling the void with other things like journaling and praying.
Yeah, you absolutely have to acknowledge it, because you can't just wake up in the morning and why am I feeling kind of blue today?
Right, exactly. I love this concept of the skinny branches. You mentioned that learning to embrace life on the skinny branches. How did taking risks and stepping out of your comfort zone during this trip help you to grow personally and professionally?
Well, I will say, living life on the skinny branches has always been a phrase I love because I do take risks. Any business owner takes risks. And as I was raising my boys, I would say, guys, just jump off the bridge. Well, I didn't mean that literally, but they were jumping off the bridge at a quarry, and I didn't know that till years later. So, but I've always used the expression, just jump off the bridge, just do it, and what could happen. So living on skinny branches was what this entire trip was. And it's like living on the very tip of the branch, sometimes, and sometimes, you're on a little sturdier branch. But number one, it makes life fun. Number two, you have to figure things out. So a skill set that I developed, finely tuned on this trip, was to figure it out. All right, I'm totally lost. I'm in the middle of Pyrenees, and there's not one soul in sight. It's a Sunday, and there's no bus, nothing. So you have to figure it out, which is just creating. And, as a designer, you just imagine, okay, I could really be sitting in some nice little restaurant right now with, but figuring it out is what happens when you take risks, because it doesn't always go the way you think it will. I mean, if you think about business, just product testing, right? So if you have a product and it doesn't go the way you thought it would, you try something else, or you try something else. And that trip was like that.
Right.
I did realize that, okay, so I'm thoroughly enjoying all the freedom that I'm having, but there were times where I thought, I'm exhausted figuring things out. I just want a comfortable day with, I don't have, but no, it was so worth it. And when I arrived back here, and so many of my friends called me and said, oh my God, I saw your videos and it just sounds like so much fun, but I'm afraid. And that was when I would have the skinny branch conversation, because if you don't live life on skinny branches, maybe not all the time, but a good part of the time, you miss out on a lot of fun. And as Katharine Hepburn has quoted saying, if you obey all the rules, you don't have very much fun. Well, as a designer, and my kids will tease me, Mom, you can get away with anything because you're blonde, you're Polish, and you're a designer.
That's right.
And anyway, it makes me laugh because I'm a rule obeyer, but I sure bend the rules a lot. And why? Because in my design world, if I were to stay rigid with my thought process, we're not really creating much. So as an example, I call it the magic of 3. You might have 50 ideas, but you have to somehow narrow it down to 3, and I call it the magic of 3. So if we were designing your kitchen, I would have one design within those walls, and then I would say, well, just suppose we bumped through that wall, and that's stretching it a little bit, and then just suppose we removed 2 of these walls. What would life be like for you as the client? And I've done that so many times in my world that you change lives through design.
Absolutely.
And you change lives when you think out of the box. You change not just yourself, but you change others. And in my design world, I've experienced it so many times. I've seen that smile on their face. We never would have thought of this.
Right.
And so living on the skinny branches for 30 days straight. Probably pushed my buttons a little bit. But on the other hand, it was so exciting to do that. And that's why I want to share this with other people. Now, they may not choose, 30 days, but try one day. One day without any rules, one day without anything you have to do, which is really what the Downsizing Designer is all about, the decluttering and downsizing so that in your life you only have the things that you love.
Right.
And it means like your calendar is not filled with commitments that you don't really want to do. You don't have to do any of those. So those are gone. Or sometimes toxic relationships that aren't healthy for you, get rid of those. And then, so what do you want less of and what do you want more of?
Yeah.
And really, that's what lifestyle design is all about. So in addition to being an interior designer, a lifestyle design is really what I do. And it's what lights me up because you can change lives through these kind of conversations, maybe through my experience to some extent, to encourage other people to just get out on the skinny branches and have some fun.
That's amazing.
Jump off the bridge.
That's right. They took you. Well, at least they were listening to you, right? You knew they were listening to you. But you know what, Rita? I just think the lack of like the boundaries and just being open to possibilities and taking those risks opens up doors for creativity and possibilities. For you to for people to design the life that they want. So.
When you think of, and we all do this to some extent, we live in a little box and we get up every day and we do this and we do that and we do that. But even if one day a week you say, I'm not going to have any boundaries today. If I feel like going for a walk in the woods, I'm going to do that. If I feel like spending hours baking in the kitchen, whatever you feel like doing, you have to really listen to yourself. And that's where joy comes.
Really does.
And real happiness, because you're not being dictated by what you're supposed to do, have to do. I mean, we all have some time in the day. This is something that I've learned. If I'm tired, take that 10 or 20 minute nap. That's okay.
It is.
I used to feel so guilty about that. Like I should be productive. No, if I'm tired, I want to go take a little nap. And it refreshes you and rejuvenates you. So it's really, what do you want more of? What do you want less of? And that's what, Downsizing Designer is all about.
That's wonderful. It's beautiful. It's a lovely concept to embrace because contentment is truly from within. And, filling your life with busyness, that everything is so structured, doesn't allow that time for you to breathe and embrace life.
That's right. Yeah.
So how do you feel that this adventure changed your perspective on work-life balance? And what did you learn about the feasibility of your work 3, play 4 business model?
I think it's very doable. Now, I will say that at certain points in my life when I became a single mom and a lot of responsibilities, and I owned my building and my home, I had a lot of responsibility then. So life then, it probably wasn't as possible to work 3 and play 4. At this stage of my life, and even 10 years ago, I could have considered that. 20 years ago, I might have considered, well, just work, 4 and play 1. I think you have to have play in your life. For me, in my early career, I worked in retail, and I had to work every Saturday and every Sunday. And my commitment to myself was, I will never, ever work a Saturday or Sunday again. And I haven't. So that was putting boundaries around time, because time is so valuable. So working 3, playing 4 is a possibility. Now, you may structure it differently, so you might, and I think a lot of people are trying to do that now, work, the times when the kids are in school, and then you have that time off, whatever it is that works for you. I just think you have to create something for yourself. And to this day, I believe that it's possible for anyone. And I wish that everyone would get Tim Ferriss's 4-hour work week because it woke me up to what is possible. And then I've always loved to travel. So now Jim and I travel a lot, and we golf a lot, and yet from wherever I am, I can write. I can still run projects back here. I mean, I have to be a little diligent about, when I leave, but it is possible. And I think you just have to say it's possible.
Yeah.
Because as long as my blinders were on, and I remembered the reaction when Sean gave me that book, there's no way. That was I didn't say that out loud, but it was like, no way. But the more I thought about it, and I did read the book over the weekend because I was so curious about it, I had to be open to that possibility. You have to be open to whatever it is that you want to change in your life. Right. So when people say to me, I've got all this stuff in my house and I just can't even imagine decluttering all of this stuff that I've had for 30 years. As long as you say you can't, you can't. Mm-hmm. But the minute you say, I'm going to start, it's going to be one drawer, one shelf, whenever at a time, when something small, then that whole big project doesn't seem, impossible. And in terms of changing your lifestyle, your work hours, try taking an hour off in the middle of the day, at the beginning of the day, whatever, start late. I just think it's possible for anybody.
Yeah. And you said something earlier about listening to yourself, listening to that voice inside, because we have that, and that's our guide to say what's working and what's not working, but it's taking that time to even acknowledge that. Bravo to you.
Well, you have to be aware of what you value, what matters most to you. As a minimalist, that's a key point. It's a starting point. Like, what matters most to you? And that is up here. What doesn't matter to you? And that's down here. And those are the things you let go of. Yeah. So if you were, decluttering your home, and I remember one of the first things I did was go to my library, and I looked at all of those shelves, which were floor-to-ceiling bookcase filled with beautiful stuff. And I thought, oh, this is so overwhelming. But I said, no, one shelf at a time. And when you break down big thoughts, big changes into smaller bites, you can do it.
Yeah. And just when you were just doing that with your hands, as far as, letting go of things that you don't value or you don't want, it really opens up for more of the things that you do want. So it is that decluttering, and it's so liberating.
Well, and everybody has, there's no one way to do this. So if you want to live a simpler life, you have to determine for yourself, what does simple mean? So when I went to Africa to be with my son in the Peace Corps, we stayed in his little hut for a month. And that trip was life-changing also, because I came back thinking I had never experienced people that have nothing, but they were happy. They were joyous. It was coming from inside. And I thought, I don't have that right now. I want that. And that was the driver for me to downsize, declutter. And that was so strong in my head. I valued that so much. And I didn't know how to get it. But I just thought, one drawer, one shelf at a time. And that's what happened.
And look at the transformation it made in your life. And now you're able to share that story to inspire and empower others.
Yeah, that's the most important thing of all.
It is.
Yeah.
So you spoke about adopting a vacation mindset in everyday life. How has this mindset influenced the way you live and work since returning from France?
Sure. So I got on the plane to come back from France, and I was so excited about life in general, and I had just experienced this amazing thing. And I don't know, something was going on in my life that was so right. And they said, would you like to sit in first? Of course I was going to want to sit in first. So here I am sitting in first class, which I don't normally travel first. And I thought, this is so much fun because I just came from this amazing experience. Now here's another amazing experience. And I remember sitting there, having a glass of wine, thinking, I cannot let this go. This feeling is so new and invigorating and life-giving. I cannot let that go.
Right.
So I came back home and I thought, every single day I'm going to create as if I'm on a vacation. Well, when you're on vacation, you know, you're open, you're excited about life. Everything is, you know, pretty, people are nice. I mean, all these good things line up for you. And when you live your life as if you're on vacation every day, it can be done in your backyard. I have a beautiful little patio that is like my sanctuary out there. I get so much life by sitting on that little patio every single morning. So if you want to, in your own neighborhood, just take a walk, talk to people as if you were on vacation. You know, rather than just walking by your neighbor, engage them in conversation. You do little things every single day that create a vacation mindset.
That's great. And it really shifts the way you think. And almost every day to think about that concept invigorates you to do it.
It does.
For a new experience.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
So, last question here, Rita. Reflecting on your 30-day journey, what would you say was the most significant lesson you learned about yourself, and how has it influenced your approach to life in your third act, so to say?
The word that comes to mind is figure it out. And I didn't realize it, but as a designer, all my life I've been figuring it out. You know, how do you design this building? How do you bring their tastes and needs to this space? And what I learned in France, and I use it every single day, is just figure it out. And that is a skill set I probably always had, but it was so fine-tuned because all my fun, kind of crazy experiences. Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for this time today and for sharing your lessons from France.
Oh, well, thank you. And I love having you here, Angela Jo, and thank you so much.